Hello music creators, Mike here, and what you just heard was the sound of infinite brass, something I just recorded on my MIDI keyboard live without using a single key switch, and that is the true power of this wonderful brass sample library. So let me share my full review with you in this video right now. So I'm going to dive right in and share my favorite aspects of this instrument after having played with it for a couple of days. So number one is extreme playability. And by playability I mean how easily you can create parts with your MIDI keyboard, faders and MIDI controllers. And Infinite Brass really has a brand new approach that I really love for a sample library, and that is practically all sample libraries have these key switches that you switch between. So you program key switches in your sequencer to go from, for example, a legato. Let's say I want to put an accent here. I need to change, for example, to a marcato or sforzato, like this. Or if I want to do a staccato or staccatissimo, I would have to program that key switch into the sequencer and play. And then if I want to go back to legato, I would have to program again. What Infinite Brass can do is do all these changes of sound like a real instrument, so I can play it in. From legato to smooth transitions to accent transitions and to short staccato and all that stuff, and all can transition dynamically with how you play. And you can of course add all of this CC automation to your faders to perform it even deeper. And that takes us to tip number, or my favorite aspect number 2, which is great sound shaping. So not only do you have the classic, of course, dynamics, but I mean, check this out. You can add flutter tone, growl, vibrato depth and rate, and you can even shape the dynamic range, attack accuracy, attack time, and a lot of this stuff in the interface here to shape your performance and sound and tone. Which takes us to the next favorite aspect, which is dynamic smoothness, because Infinite Brass uses phase-aligned sampling, which is a technical term. I'm not really sure exactly what it means, other than the most important thing, which is that I can do dynamics going from the softest here to the loudest fortissimo without any artifacts in the cross-fading. Because let's say another sample library might have recorded samples as P, let's say M, P, and then F, like let's say 4 or 5 dynamic layers. And then when you transition between them, you can clearly hear the crossfade between the dynamic layers, which is not the case here, because I can go from soft to the full fortissimo without any artifacts in the crossfading like other sample libraries, and this is what I call dynamic smoothness. Next one, number 4, is light on RAM. Because this instrument is recorded, I think, in a dry studio environment and then uses convolution, reverb, ambiences here. So the close mic, main mic, and ambience mic are not really recorded mics in a room. They are convolution reverb made by Aaron Venture, so you can actually get all of these mixes between the closed main and ambiences in different rooms without changing the RAM, because that is the only sound. So if I shift here, you can see 25 megabytes, horns 24 megabytes, tuba 21 megabytes, really low for any sample library software instrument. So it's very light on RAM, and also not that much on CPU, since it is, it's not all these recordings and microphones. So number 5 is the amount of instruments. Lots of instruments. I mean, more than any other brass library I have currently. You get contrabass tuba and tuba. Contrabass trombone. So let me open this up so you can see that it's actually 3 contrabass trombones, so that you can create an ensemble or play only one trombone if you wish. You get bass trombones. Let's see how many. 3 of them. You get tenor trombones. 2 of them. Horns. You get up to 6 horns to create this really big. Of course, the horns is one of the most important brass instruments for those big themes. You can also get an older instrument that is not much used in classic orchestras today, called euphonium, which has a really wide range, as you can see here. Can do these slides like a trombone. Can be a really cool color to add. Bass, trumpets, 2 of them. Trumpets, 4 trumpets. And also even a piccolo trumpet, not that common. But with piccolo flute, piccolo trumpets, you can really add those high-pitched, shimmering melodic notes up there in the high range. So, lots of instruments. Number 6, stage and space. So let's go to, let's say, the horns again here. What you can, or no, let's use a solo like this tuba here. Because what you can do is click here and change between a studio sound. So let's play in the low range because it's the tuba. You can do a hall or a great hall here. And even further, you can shape this. So, of course, you can change the mic positions here, which are different close, main, and ambience mics. But you can also go in here, click here, and you can see this where it is positioned. So the brass line goes from here to here. You can see strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion. That is the usual setup for the staging of orchestral instruments. You can see it marked right here. But you can move it to the left side if you want to. Of course, you will hear in both left and right speakers because you hear the sound of the entire room. But it moves slightly to the left. Or here. You can even put it right here, just in front of the conductor, which is basically the solo position, if you want it really in your face. So usually you have like the principal violin player or something up in front here. Well, let's put it back again. I prefer having brass here way back to really get more of that beautiful room ambience. So then number 7 is mixed microphone presets. So you can, of course, mix yourself like this. But that is essentially using close, main, ambience, all 3 convolution reverbs. So if you want to save some CPU, you can click here, mixed mic. Then you have 5 different variations. It doesn't change the RAM because, again, these are not recorded microphone positions, but convolution reverb. So you get from closer to more ambient here. And it saves some CPU since it's a mixed microphone position. At least that's how I understood it. And number 8, you can create custom ensembles. Go here to the horns and check this out. So you can choose how many instruments you want to add, depending on how many are provided. 6 horn. And these are different recordings. So I think, at least that's how I interpreted it. Anyway, what you can do is, it's different settings. So you can see here you have attack accuracy on the highest setting on the first principal player, horn 1. And then you have attack accuracy here and humanized aspects here. So that every single time you hit a note, it will be a bit different. And all of these players have a slightly different setting on attack accuracy. You can even change the value of the humanized factor here, which introduces some note timing and velocity variations, as you can see. By the way, this is a really nice feature as well that more context libraries should use. You can hover your mouse over here and read in the lower part of the screen, if you take a look again there, what everything does. I mean, that should be something everyone does, but they don't, sadly. Instead of having to go read the manual every time. So you can create your own custom ensembles by changing some sound shaping features of each player, and then you can even have slightly different staging of them as well. I believe it might be so, because that's the second. Let's see if the next one is... Yeah, so they are already loaded as horn 1, 2, 3. I guess these guys here, 6 of them here, but you can put one over here if you wanted to, and shape your entire ensemble. So those are my favorite aspects of Infinite Brass. Now I also want to mention some things to consider. So the first one is I would have preferred a bigger interface. So I'm looking at this on my high-resolution monitor, and since I have my MIDI keyboards in front of me, my monitor is like 1 meter away from me. And I know that Contact, you can do a bigger version of the interface. So I would have preferred that personally. Also, something that bugged me for a while before I realized it was when because this library has lots of mutes. Another great aspect that I forgot to mention. So if you go to the trumpets, for example, you can see these are variation none here. But you can play mute. So I just clicked here and I clicked on these arrows. Like, what am I doing? Well, apparently it's actually a slider, so you have to left click and then drag to the right. So that was a minor thing, but anyway. So you can have a straight mute. Oh, by the way, remember that you are only affecting this instrument. If you have an ensemble, you have to go in and apply it automatically to the next ones. I wish Contact had a way. I'm not sure if it does, that I could change certain aspects of the sound on all parts. But anyway, so if you go to tubas here, you have to left click and then drag to the mute. So let's put it on higher. You can hear what the mute does there. And it's even more prominent on the trumpets with some. You get a straight mute, a cup, bucket, harmon stem out. I'm not even sure. I know they put some things here in where the air comes out, and that changes the sound a lot. So that was the mute. And finally, I have to be honest, it has great playability, but the downside is, of course, that it's just like a real instrument. You really need to practice to play parts on this, because... So I want to play something fast. Okay, so you heard there the sound blurred together because I didn't push enough of the velocity on the MIDI keys. So you need to practice to find that golden zone. Until you become familiar with how you actually play infinite brass, because it's very different from just playing simple legato lines on horns. Which of course is very easy, but if you are going to add variation in the parts, which, I mean, since sample libraries often have the key switches, all of them, you really don't do that. You like play a horn line with legato. You might program in key switches later, or some composers even have the staccato notes on another line, which have never made any sense to me. I mean, it's like a real player having to stop between the lines to change a setting on his violin before playing the next note. It doesn't make sense. You should be able to just play it and perform each part with all that variation. And that is the main feature, I would say, of infinite brass. Alright, so that was my review of infinite brass. I will leave a link in the video description if you want to learn more about this instrument. Now choose which video you are going to watch next, or you can check out the amazing bonuses in the video description.